Good evening and happy hump day, everybody. It's Roman Rich with an impromptu 66 minutes. This is the first time I've ever done one during the week. Somewhat unscripted, but very, very necessary. For those of you that tuned in to episode 34, you'll probably have a good idea as to why. This is episode number 35. In episode number 34, we covered a lot of the issues that Route 66 has been experiencing as of lately, namely the Gemini Giant, and tonight's focus, the Ribbon Road or Sidewalk Highway in Ottawa County, Oklahoma, just south of the town of Miami, or some of you, as you might spell it or say it, Miami, but that's not how you say it. Okay, so the chat is open. I hope you guys are geared up and ready for an exciting episode. We've got two guests already in our studio, and the theme of tonight's the theme of tonight's episode is talking about the Ribbon Road, what's happening, why it's happening, what's the best outcome, why the experts feel the way they do on both sides. And this won't be the last episode or the last discussion we have about this. I'm planning on having another episode this Sunday, and I'm actually thinking about offering up an opportunity for those decision makers and authorities at Ottawa County to come join us and maybe have a spirited discussion as to what things or why things are happening and why they feel the way they do. And we'll see how this goes. So feel free to comment. This is a very open forum talking about the Ribbon Road. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your comments. If you're in Facebook, please do us a favor and just let us know in your comment, hey, this is Fred, and I think this, or I'm asking this, because for whatever reason, I can't see your name or who you are on the Facebook comments. On YouTube and stuff like that, it does a good job of telling us who the users are. So again, thanks for joining us. If you have a moment, we're just getting the show started. Go out there, share the feed, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, text your friends a copy of it. Say, hey, this is going on right now. This is very important. This is important for our nation's history. This is important for the community of Route 66 enthusiasts. It's important for people in Oklahoma. It's just important all the way around. We're talking about a road that's more than 100 years old. The actual surface is more than 100 years old. We're not talking about just the path. The actual physical surface is more than 100 years old, and it is highly endangered, and it is actually being purposely ruined as we speak. And this is not a future thing. This is unfolding as we speak right now. So before I get into my guests, I want to share some video that I received from one of our advocates there in the Miami area. We just had a show, folks, Sunday, talking about this. And I believe, what is today? Wednesday? Yeah, I think so. Today's Wednesday. Yesterday, without any warning, without any notice, Ottawa County Highway Commissioner Scott Hilton sent out his crew of graders and started doing work on the Ribbon Road, damaging it, causing more harm, causing more irreversible damage without any sort of notice given to anybody. I'm going to show you some of those videos right now. And this is all from Christy Chance. Give me just a second here. I'll share my screen. Okay, we got some pictures. Now, they ran the motor grader through here. You got chunks of rock. You can see where they've covered the asphalt. You can see where they've covered everything, and that'll give you a better screen. So that's a still photo. Just that little strip of asphalt through the middle. That is the original road. That's about 100-year-old asphalt. Here, it's completely covered with rock and dirt. And this is all in Ottawa County. This is the sidewalk highway. Can't even see it anymore. just last week, you could see the highway. They had it swept. It was in relatively okay shape compared to, well, I say relatively because 15 years ago it was in a lot better shape, but it hadn't gotten any worse in the last few years. Now they're going back to doing their old things. You can see here, here's pavement. This is asphalt. And then this is dirt that they've graded over. And here's a video. I don't know if there's sound. Let's see here.
You can see where the grader looks like it.
Let's pause this. Now, all right, I'm going to bring in one of my guests. It's Reese Martin. You're not going to see him, but because I'm in full screen video with Christy's video right now. Reese, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
What do you think about this frame that we have up on our screen right now?
I mean, this is just absolute like example of what the county has been doing to this road really ever since they started graveling it in the mid 80s, but it's really accelerated over the last 10 to 15 years where they come out and they gravel the road, you know, for safety or whatever the reasons are that they say it is. But just the action of graveling the road as it is churns it up like this. And you can see how this asphalt that has been out here for over 100 years, like more of it gets chipped away every time they do this. And as you said earlier in the broadcast, I mean, it's irreversible.
Yeah. So what do you physically see? I mean, I know what it is, but I want to hear from you what you think you see in this picture frame.
I don't know how else to put it than just thumbing their nose at the preservation community.
Well, okay, but what does the picture show you? What do you see? What are these chunks you see and everything?
So that's asphalt that was embedded in the concrete like it has been, and now it's all loose. So
Yes.
The next rain that comes through, the next couple of vehicles that drive through, it's going to scatter it and it's going to be gone.
That's the answer I was looking for. So that is what we have here, folks. That, I don't know if I can zoom in. No, it won't let me. So that is 100-year-old asphalt that has been destroyed as of yesterday due to the carelessness. Maybe it's retribution because I put out a big show condemning their actions, and this is how they go back. They say, hey, this is it. We'll do what we want. It's our road. We don't care. This is what they're doing, folks. They're destroying the road. That is your asphalt. That is 100-year-old asphalt that they are destroying right now. I'm going to go back to the video. There's only a few seconds left. Here's the next video, I believe, or no, it's the same video. Here she is driving. They've completely covered up the road. They've graded rock over it, just like they did, 10, 15 years ago under Russell Earls. This is how they treated the road. And I remember that Russell's stance on the road was, we don't care. It's our road. We're going to do whatever we want with it. We don't care if it's Route 66. We're going to grade it and do whatever we want. We wish the road wasn't even here. We wish it was just rock, was kind of his sentiments. Let's see what Christy's got going on. So she's getting out. That looks like curbing.
Yeah, that's the concrete curb there.
We're going to.
A lot more chunks.
So she just picked up a chunk.
Taken out.
Let me back up. So she's getting out. Right. Okay. Gosh, where to go? I think right in here is about where the curb is at. It's kind of hard to delineate, but oh, there's the curb right through there, folks. That's the concrete curb. I know it's really hard to tell, but that's the concrete curb. And then Christy goes to pulling a chunk of asphalt that's just laying there. And she chucks it aside. There it is. That's your asphalt.
Taken out. In the name of trying to protect it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
the part that kills me.
Reese, wasn't there an inquiry about why they were doing what they were doing?
Yeah, I mean, and I think back to that meeting in 2020 that you and I were both at when they first started talking about these plans, and it was presented as, well, the gravel helps preserve it, which just blows my mind.
I mean, if you could magically place gravel over the road, I'd say, yeah, you could be protecting it, but how do you get the gravel there to begin with? You got to bring in a giant grader blade, and these guys are scalping the road. I don't know. I can go back to Dave Wickline's images, and I don't know if I've got those or not. Let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Let me pull it up. So that's David Wickline's image. This was, I wish Wickline was here. He could tell us, but I think he shot this image 15 years ago or so. And that's how they were maintaining the road. They got a big giant blade on there. And imagine any kind of a blade scraping across something, a snowplow blade, anything. You're removing material. Just like if you shave your face or you shave your legs, that blade is taking off material. It's taking off a little bit of skin. It's taking off the hair. That's what a grater blade does. So you can see right there behind him. He's pushing off material to left and the right. And the road at that time was in decent shape. They just it was lumpy and bumpy. They didn't, I mean, I get it. They didn't have an alternative. They were kind of handicapped because, well, they didn't have a lot of money. What are they supposed to do? But that's what's happening. Let's just check out what else Christy has here, because she had the latest scoop on the situation. I want to see the rest of the video. Okay. So that's her driving again. This is the same video. This is another one. Chunks of asphalt throughout. Folks, look how black that is. That's that high concentration of oil. That's how it retains its rich color compared to today's asphalt. This has almost twice the oil content in the mixture of asphalt than what today's asphalt has in it. And today's asphalt gets gray and oxidizes out within about 30 to 90 days. This stuff has retained a dark color for its entire life. Okay. I'm going to bring in the next guest. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And we've got Journey and Joe with us. Okay, let me see if I can balance this out. It's been a long time since I had 3 people. Well, hey, that works, I think.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, Reese just has to move over a little bit. What's up, Journey and Joe?
Thank you very much for allowing me to participate in your podcast. I'm honored to be in the same picture with somebody like Reese and somebody like Rich. I guess the reason I'm here is because I went online and I asked a few questions, and Rich had the excellent idea of why don't we talk about it on his show rather than just going back and forth with Facebook comments, because we know they get personal pretty quickly, and then the conversation's essentially over. But so the couple of questions I asked is, first of all, I asked, what is the motive behind this? Is this just a personality conflict between people, or and what do the locals think? People live on this road, don't they? And have they?
Yeah. So I'll give a brief answer to that, and I'll let the president of Oklahoma, I'll let him answer it. But when I attended the meetings there, I believe it was in 2020 or 2021, when I attended those initial meetings from the engineering company, the county, and all interested parties, that the locals, they were concerned about the history of the road. They were concerned about what was happening to the road. And overall, the majority wanted to see that road preserved, at least the people that attended the meeting. That's what I recall from that meeting. I'll let Reese address everything else you said there, Joe.
Yeah, so it's important to call out there are two sections of this road. There's a southern section that we're not even talking about right now. It's interesting looking at David Wickline's picture. I think that was actually from that southern section, the way it curves around like that. It doesn't look like anything like that anymore. This northern section is this kind of S shape, and so it depends on what section of the road you're talking about. If it's all 3 miles, which is from about where the modern pavement ends and the gravel/ribbon road starts, there's a few houses along that road. The section that I would say is in the best condition, which is the mile by that granite marker that's right on modern Highway 59, like the modern alignment of historic Route 66, and then a mile eastward. That's the section that is in the best shape. And that has no houses on it whatsoever. There's one turn in with a gate to like some farmland, but there are no residents on that section. But it does still see a significant amount of agricultural and local traffic of folks that do live back east there that are heading towards the highway to either go to Miami or to Afton.
Okay, so there's not a whole lot of local folks who live on the Ribbon Road, and they recognize the significance of it, the history of it, and I'll just assume that they made their voices heard. Okay, so the people that live there want to preserve the road, but the county commissioner, whoever, doesn't want to. So my next question, follow-up question, is how much more does it cost to preserve the road than it does to just throw rocks over it and grade it? From my experience working with industry, my experience is that it is almost always cheaper to demolish something and just rebuild it than it is to preserve what exists. So is there any idea what the cost difference is?
So I worked up some cost estimates I guess it was a year or two ago. Was that right, Reese? Was it last year or the year before?
I think it was last year.
Okay. And so I worked up a price just to mill it and pave it. And it came out to about $400,000 just to mill and pave. Now, that doesn't include finding the road. That doesn't include sections of road that have been completely obliterated where the curb has to be rebuilt. And that does not include the curbing, because concrete is not my level of expertise. I deal exclusively with asphalt. But if the road was cleaned off and we came in there and we milled it and paved it, it would cost about $400,000. And patching it was about $10,000 cheaper. So yeah, there's a lot more labor. It's a lot more intensive to do it the right way. It's going to take probably 4 times longer, at least 5-6 times longer, but that's the right way to do it. I mean, that's kind of what our general statement here is either just leave it alone and do nothing at all, or do it the right way. But if memory serves, and I look back at the interview with Russell Earls, and I can show that to people. I have a copy of that I can show tonight, where he says, we're just going to grind it out and mill it and pave it. After he had told us they weren't going to do that in person, he said that. He goes on TV and says, we're going to mill it out and pave it. I think they had $4 million allotted to this project. Is that right?
That sounds
Reese?
right. It was a mixture of a state grant and a federal grant to make up that $4 million.
$4 million. And I've got $400,000 to do the patchwork. I got 10% of it in the asphalt, which is patching it and cleaning it up.
$4 million just for the Ribbon Road?
Yeah. Where's all that money going, Joe?
That is a good question. And we don't have anyone here that can answer that.
Well, maybe one of those guys will come on here Sunday from the engineering, or from our good consultant friend Russell Earls, or from the county commission, and answer some of those questions. I doubt they will, but I would love to have them on. And in case anybody was wanting to know how many tons of asphalt I was going to use, I've got right at 500 tons of asphalt to do patching at about 1 3/4 inches thick, which covers about 40,000 square feet roughly. It's a lot of square footage of patching. So, and back in the 1920s, they didn't have a road paving machine. Guess how they would have put this asphalt down?
They just poured it in piles and then they raked it.
Yeah, they put it down by hand. Yep. Which is pretty much is what's going to happen to get it patched back in the right way. And will it be splotchy? Will it be kind of strange looking? Yeah, it will be. But it's going to oxidize. It's going to start blending out. And it's still going to be that lovable road that we've all grown to be so passionate about, that we're going to come in there and we're going to feel like overall we're still touching a piece of time. We're touching a piece of history that somebody with their own hands, their own blood, sweat, and tears at a time when they didn't know what road paving was, put down. And then they want to erase it.
Well, and I think having it that way visually also helps better tell its story.
It does.
I said the other day, the road has earned its bumps and it should be allowed to keep them. And if somebody's going down the road and it is nice and a better driving experience, that's great. But to your point, if it just looks like a brand new road, the history is lost completely, even beyond the material. Even if you take that completely out of the equation, it's just a replica at that point.
So let's think about one of the, and I'm not tooting my own horn here because we had a lot of help and I was just a small part of the picture here, but let's talk about one of the more successful preservation projects that got pulled off in the last 5-6 years, which was the Painted Desert Trading Post. Off in the middle of the desert, no electricity, no water, plenty of sand, plenty of sun, plenty of wind. 45 minutes in either direction from civilization. And over the course of 3 years, that's how long it took, we restored, and by preservation standards, restored that property. Now, Joe, it would have been so much easier just to come in there with a dumpster and an excavator and with a thumb on it and just crunch that thing up and throw it in a dumpster. I could have had that thing gone in probably 2 hours. Easily. Could have had the whole thing like it never existed in 2 hours. And then we could have just built a brand new Painted Desert Trading Post with all new stucco and windows, and it would have been beautiful, right?
Yeah, that would be like George Washington's axe, only you replace the metal and you replace the handle. I get that,
Yeah. So it's the same thing here. It's not a building, right? It's not a restaurant. It's not a diner, but it's still a landmark. It's still a piece of construction history, just like the Gasconade River Bridge or any other Overholser Bridge, any of these artifacts or landmarks that we've all come to revere over the course of the history of the Renaissance of Route 66. And so this is no different. Not once did we ever say we should just tear down this old Painted Desert Trading Post and just rebuild it from the ground up. So what other questions did you have, Joe? You had some pretty good, I'd like to hear the questions because, it really provoked me to pause and say, you know what, these, not everybody just knows what we know, and they deserve
Well,
to
what
know.
I was doing was what we used to call, where I work, we call it 5 whys. They ask a question, you get an answer, and then you ask why, and then you get an answer and you ask why. I was just kind of drilling down, and I don't have my original posts in front of me, so I'm not sure exactly what I asked, but in my mind, the reason they're not doing the right thing is either because it costs too much to do the right thing, or they don't have the expertise to do the right thing, or there's some kind of personality conflict where someone doesn't want to do the right thing for some, personal or economic reason.
Well, I believe, my opinion, I gave them a perfect scope of work because they had a dilemma on how to provide safe passage, adequate passage for locals, how to balance that with the historic integrity, keeping the characteristics intact for the tourists, and the third and major one, so that they wouldn't have to put grader blades on it anymore, right? And that's where I came up. And in a nutshell, I'll just give it to you. We were going to pave the shoulders about 13 foot to 14 foot wide. It's plenty of width to accommodate large traffic. Patch the curbing, repair the curbing, replace it where it's gone, replace the asphalt where it's gone, patch the existing asphalt, and then finally chip and seal, put a gravel aggregate over a tar base, which is called chip and seal, the fresh road that we just put down on either side of the historic highway, because that would give it a gravel looking appearance, and it wouldn't have to be graded. Now, it would have to be chip and sealed periodically, probably about every 3 to 5 years. But ODOT addressed that by volunteering a piece of equipment. They were going to give Ottawa County an oil distributor, which is the biggest part of that maintenance puzzle. And so they flip-flopped around on the scope several times. And in the latest iteration, which we didn't even cover on the last show, Reese, what was it?
So the middle iteration was to pave, instead of, as Rich talked about, having chip and seal on the sides, actually paving it with super, I forgot the term, but super pave, which looks like interstate asphalt. And then leaving the middle lane completely alone. So the areas where the ribbon road is completely deteriorated, they just said, we're just going to leave it completely deteriorated and basically just have a gravel turn lane in the middle of 2 asphalt lanes. Like it didn't really make any sense.
What about the stripes?
Yep. So that was something else that they said they needed for safety, was striping along the 2 new shoulder lanes, both striping along the outside edge and then a stripe right up next to the concrete curb. So you'd have.
Now, mind you, folks, this road has never in its life had stripes. We're talking about when everything in the United States, predominantly, unless you were in the middle of Detroit or downtown St. Louis or some urban complex, they didn't have any stripes. There was no road striping. And now all of a sudden they're wanting to introduce yellow striping down the immediate edges of the historic road. What a horrible distraction. Did we ever get a motive as to why, Reese, why they introduced this at the last second?
It was just mentioned as safety. It wasn't a very long discussion or motive, just for better safety.
Yeah. If anything violates Section 106, that should violate it immediately. Not to mention grinding out and replacing all the 100-year-old asphalt.
Yeah, if people haven't gone out there, on the OklahomaRoute66.com website, we have a page for the Ribbon Road, and I put together a pretty crude little graphical representation of what that would look like with that striping.
I saw that.
Let me I'll pull that up. Let me pull that up real quick, see if I can find that real quick. Yeah, because you did have a picture.
And while you're
and you said it was on your
while
website,
you're pulling that
right?
up, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here and put myself in front of the firing squad and ask the question: what part of this road is more historic? The original asphalt and the curbs in the 9-foot center section, or the gravel sections to the left and to the right of the historic asphalt and curb? Because because I know someone suggested, why don't we just build another road next to it? And the answer to that was no, the people don't want to give up their property rights and have another road built there. So here we've got this road, this existing road, 9 feet of it is historic, from the concrete curb to the other concrete curb. Okay. What's historic about the gravel on either side? That's a question.
Let me share a photo with you. It'll help answer. Give me a second here. Let's see here. I've got it pulled up, ready to go. Okay. Now this is my good friend, Shelley Graham. This particular photo was a huge inspiration for me to become Roman rich and go out and research and explore Route 66.
That's beautiful.
This is the Ribbon Road in the 1990s. And look at that gravel. It's hardly there. It's like maybe 3 feet, 4 feet on each side. It's probably about 3 feet on the left side, 4.5 to 5 feet on the right side. That's about as close of an image as you're going to get that represents what this section of road looked like before the county started messing with it. I believe that they went in there and started adding gravel to the sides, and then they made such a mess of it that they just said the heck with it, and they tried to throw gravel on top, and they said, hey, this road's a pain in the ass. Just drop your blade down lower and grind it all up, cut it all up, and eventually it'll go away and it'll sink back into the soil base below. So maybe this picture answers what's your interpretation of this photo?
Well, my
Joe?
interpretation of this photo is it's beautiful. And I remember it looked similar to that the first time I drove down there. And yeah, I can see that. I mean, that it looks like it's orange colored gravel. I mean, it's not big gravel like it's on there now. And I could see,
Right.
and I could see that, the gray gravel, whenever it first got there, was a big mistake. And I don't know what it would take to make the road look like this again. But what I'm thinking of is what somebody's thinking of doing is basically leaving the middle of the road alone, the original asphalt and the curbs, and paving the right side where that orange gravel is and the left side where that orange gravel is, which would effectively give you a modern road on one side and the other side with a historic lane in the middle. Just thinking out loud.
That's kind of what we came up with. So yeah, we're paving to the left and to the right. Originally, we had talked about one of the ideas proposed at the meeting was, well, can we just pave a totally separate road off to one side of the Ribbon Road and make that the road and block off the historic section? And while that's feasible, it was going to cost way too much money for right-of-way acquisition. The plan that I presented works within the right-of-way. They have enough right-of-way currently to pull that off. They have to change the ditch line a little bit with drainage. That's where a lot of the money is. There's some ditch line maintenance there and modifications, but there's no. I don't believe there was any right-of-way acquisition. Isn't that right, Reese?
Yeah, the conversations that we've had was that once this gets the green light, whatever happens, that it's going to move pretty quickly because there is no acquisition that needs to happen. They have all the right-of-way they need.
Yeah. So I guess they put together the $4 million, and I don't know if that's an accurate quote, if there's some fat in there or not, but like I told you, 10% of it should be asphalt. I don't know where the other 90% comes in. I'm sure Guy Engineering is getting paid pretty handsomely to do their job. We don't have any cost estimate on what Guy Engineering's run up so far and what their total cost is going to be. Do we?
I haven't seen any financial breakdown. No.
Well, in Missouri, we have a thing called the Sunshine Law, where everything is public domain and accessible just by making an inquiry. I don't know if Oklahoma has a transparency law like that for records, but maybe somebody should look into this and see what Guy Engineering has been paid so far to do this work. Because in my opinion, they haven't done that much work. I'm trying to look that photo up, Reese, on the striping. Give me a second and I'll see if I can dig that up here. So at any rate, let's look at some questions from, oh gosh, I had it right the first time. That's better. Okay. There was some good questions in here, and Reese, you've been doing a great job at answering them. You're a good multitasker, man.
I literally every day, because
awesome.
like you, I've got a day job in addition to my association responsibilities. My desk here has 4 monitors on it because I have my work computer that I have to work at, my everything else. So I'm constantly back and forth all day.
Yep. So let's see here. We don't drive down Route 66 for a smooth driving experience. That was from a Facebook user. That's a good one. I like that. Alan Whitman from YouTube says, what about smaller equipment that wouldn't do so much damage rather than done totally by hand? Well, Alan, I can answer that. There is smaller equipment. There's I would imagine, because this is only a 9-foot wide pathway, and I believe that's curb to curb, isn't it, Reese?
Yes.
So that means the inside is about 8 foot. Most pavers today, the machines, they don't like going down to 8 foot. Their specifications say they will, but the machine does not like it. So they would probably use a pathway paver to pave this if they grinded it up, milled it, replace it. And it's still going to, I mean, the damage isn't the machinery, Alan. The damage is the methodology, the scope. That is the damage. It's not the equipment, it's the scope. And while on that topic, so if they go to mill this out, they're probably going to use a big Workgun 4-foot machine or 6-foot machine and have to make multiple passes. They run I've ran one of those machines. They're great, but you can get off just by a half an inch or an inch. If you hit that curb, if you graze that curb while milling that asphalt, I can bet you, because I doubt there's no rebar in that curbing. They weren't that innovated yet. They didn't have that sophistication yet. They just poured concrete and poured asphalt right on top of it with curbing, all monolithic. So if you just graze that with that giant mill, that rotomill, it's going to pop that curb and it's going to do damage. So that's what they want to do. And they haven't addressed anybody's concerns for that yet. They just say, oh, well, we're going to grind it up. We're going to save that asphalt. Wink, wink. We're going to save that asphalt, even though some people don't believe it's the original asphalt. And then we're going to reconstitute that at the asphalt plant and put it back down again. And, you know, anybody who's dealt with asphalt knows that every time you recycle asphalt, you lose oil content. It will not be the same mix. I don't care if it's the same mix. I don't care if someone's there with a gun standing over them. It's not the same mix after it goes through that asphalt plant. They will have to add oil to it to keep those oil levels up, as Guy Engineering has discovered, and as I discovered privately in our lab analysis. We both came out with nearly identical results from 2 different core samples. When you recook that stuff, you're going to lose oil, and you will have a different mix. Reese, you found it, didn't you? It looks like you popped it up.
I did, yeah, but I couldn't see if it was sharing the whole screen, so I stopped as to not interrupt the
Try it again.
All right, let's see. I will just share the whole screen and see if that helps.
There we go. I've got it, sir. Right.
Okay,
there.
Great.
Okay.
So this is the webpage we've set up at the Oklahoma Route 66 Association that talks about our petition, you know, who to contact, all that kind of stuff. And then it goes into a whole history of the project. You know, this is a poster that I've seen in a couple of different places here in Oklahoma with a QR code so people in the public can scan it and sign the petition. Then it goes all into the history. And to Rich's point, you can see, like, if you were able to look at a cross-section of the road, I just simplified it as much as I could for folks that haven't been steeped in this for a long time, that it's just a small little literal ribbon of asphalt in between 2 concrete curbs and then the concrete base. And the original plan that they wanted to do, the very first plan, was to chop the concrete curbs off, take out the asphalt where all you had was the base, and then redo everything. And so they've already stepped in a little bit and said, okay, well, we'll repair the curbs. And of course, we're wanting them to repair the asphalt as well. The graphic, you know, here's that meeting in 2020 that we went to when they talked about all of their different plans. Here's a couple of images that shows Shelley's wonderful image from '93. This is a 2001 image from.
That's a great image too, 2001. That's what it looked like when I saw it the first time. And I think I saw it for the first time in 2006.
Yeah, and you can see this section, you know, if it looked like this today, the curbs would need to be repaired because they've been worn down on the sides. But the integrity is still so much there. And then here it is in the summer of 2023. Again, this is what it looked like when I was out there last week before they just recently went out and covered it. But this is what I was talking about with that graphic. So from a top-down perspective, historically, at least recently, you've got gravel off to the side, the concrete curb, and the asphalt in the middle. And then the proposal with the striping is you've got this kind of slightly tinted color chip and seal that they want to try to emulate the Oklahoma red dirt look, with striping on the sides and yellow striping right next to the concrete. It just doesn't, the outside striping, like I could have a discussion about that and say, okay, well, let's talk about it. But the yellow striping in the middle, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Because it's,
what's funny, Reese? You can stripe microsurfacing. I didn't propose microsurfacing. I proposed chip and seal because it gives a loose, unshouldered gravel. It gives it a gravelly look, much like what we saw in Shelley's image. I'll pop that back up again here real quick. Let's see here. So again, much like we see down the shoulders in Shelley's image, that red dirt, gravelly look, that's probably the most natural look that it ever had. And the chip and seal would do that, but it's still a loose material. So if we go back to putting the stripes down, if like what you showed, those stripes aren't going to stick there very long. They're going to be there for about 2 months, and then they're going to be gone. It's a waste of money. It's a dumb idea.
Well, okay, the stripes are dumb, but what about just putting down the chip and seal on either side of the existing road, or even paving? You paving the left and right side. So I can idle down the historic road, and all of those pickup trucks that are in a hurry, they can fly past me on the left and the right on the new asphalt.
That's exactly what I proposed, Joe. Paving the left and right hand sides at about 13 to 14 foot wide, and then applying a chip and seal surface on top of those to give it a gravel look, but having the density and hardness of pavement to where you don't have to put a grader blade down it anymore. You just have to apply the chip and seal every few years.
Yeah, that sounds like an acceptable compromise to me. And if the cost of doing that is not prohibitive and the expertise is there to do something like that, and it sounds like it's not some experimental procedure that nobody would know how to do. Sounds like it's been done.
Well, and here's the other aspect of that too, Joe. This is a widely used methodology used in rural areas. Illinois chip and seals all the time. And Oklahoma, different counties chip and seal all the time. This is what you find in the country, which this is still a very rural country setting.
I mean, even in cities, right? You have cities where the streetcar goes down the middle of the road. It's kind of the same thing. You got a streetcar in the middle of the road, and you pave either side, and that's where the traffic goes.
Reese is pulling up on the satellite right now. He's doing a great job. And you can see the road. There is no development along this road. It's all agricultural. There's probably, a dozen houses on this particular stretch?
Yeah, like this is the area I was talking about where there's a gate, and there's obviously some work that happens here. There's no houses along here. There's a little entrance driveway here right when it turns north. And then it snakes up here, and you've got a few other access points as you go. It turns east again and heads towards town, and right about here is where the modern pavement takes over. And it's no longer historic. It's buried under there somewhere. And most of the houses are up here along this section.
Right. The most important section is that southern portion that is perpendicular to US 69 there. That's the most important section. That was the section that was in the best condition for years, and I don't know now if it's been beat to death or not. Yeah, that's pretty most of that section.
This was on Wednesday.
Wednesday of last week. Pause that. Look at that beautiful road. That does not look entirely different from what we saw in the 3 slides that you
I
showed on the website with Shelley's image, the one from 2001 and the one from 2023. And then we go and we look at what Christy showed us yesterday, and I don't have it up anymore, but what a disaster. There's got to be a motive behind the madness. What are they doing?
That is a good question. That's what I was asking. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone here from the county commissioner's office to answer our questions. I mean, everything we're talking about here, it sounds like it makes perfect sense economically and historically to do the right thing, and why someone would just want to just tear it up, I don't get it.
We don't get it either, Joe. It's either you do it right or just leave it alone and don't do anything at all. And now they've caught the attention of local leadership in the neighboring township of Miami, Oklahoma. Bless Parker is the mayor over there. He is very concerned, so much, in fact, that I believe he's gone to Oklahoma City to talk to people about this, hasn't he, Reese?
I don't know if he's gone to the city. Christy may know a little more about that than I do, but I know he was out there on Wednesday. I drove up after work to meet with about 8 people from the area, some developers, Mayor Parker, a few other folks, and we were all walking on the road. That's where I took that footage, and he was aghast. Not only that that's what the plan was, but he hadn't been looped in. And the current county commissioner hadn't talked to them about it at all. He's very aware of what a draw Ribbon Road is and how important it is to the local tourism for the town. And I mean, he's of course very concerned with wanting to preserve it, but he was almost more concerned that he hadn't been looped in at all. And I know he was trying to pursue a conversation with the county commissioner directly sometime this week. I haven't heard if that's been successful. I do know when KOAM TV out of Joplin reached out, the county commissioner told them, like they've told us, that he's busy all week and can't meet. Like it's not even an option.
Scott Hilton refuses to talk to any of us at all. He has not given us one moment of his time. This is important, people. If you haven't signed that petition, the little QR code up there in the upper hand corner of Reese's frame, sign that petition right away. Go to Oklahoma. Let's see here. What's your trying to find the
I got it. I just put it in the chat.
Website again. OklahomaRoute66.com. Go to OklahomaRoute66.com. Sign that petition. Do yourself a favor. Reese has done an excellent job of putting their website together. You can see all the various stages of the Ribbon Road and how it's been affected over the years due to the leadership there at Ottawa County. Encourage Ottawa County to reach out to us. Let's start another dialogue on the situation here. Let's talk about this. I have made myself available. I mentioned this in the last video. And Reese, you had mentioned that section north, the northern section that has been completely paved over. We know the road is still there, right?
Right.
And they had made some sort of acknowledgement to that road still being there and put forth the possibility of exhuming that road and possibly making it part of the historic Route 66 yet again. And when they talked about doing that, I gave them yet again another scope on how to properly go about doing that. And what did they do? They went out there and drilled some core holes, probably about that big, and said, oh no, the road's too far gone. When what I told them to do was go out there, drop a lane, because it's totally wide. You can have 2 lanes of traffic, no problem, but drop a lane, excavate an area like 10 by 10 or 20 by 10 and see what you're actually dealing with. I'd be willing to bet that road is still there and still worthy of being restored. Yet they ignored any invitation for me to come out there. I offered to be out there shoulder to shoulder with them, show them how to do it, run the equipment if I had to, free of charge, and silence, radio silence. And like we said before, They're not talking to us. They won't take any meetings with us. They're out there grading the road up, grinding it up right now. There's a lot of deceptive nature here amongst this group of individuals. So what do you think people should do? You've got a call to action on your website, don't you, Reese? Can't you share with people?
I do. So first thing is we have a change.org petition for people to sign. Just being very blunt, it's a petition on a website. Like that's something someone can look at and just throw over their shoulder. But I can say that it is having an impact on people. I've talked to ODOT about a separate issue, and this week, and he said, "Yep, we get updates on it about once a day, kind of what your numbers are at and everything like that." So people are looking at it and people are aware. And the people are leaving comments from all over the world saying this is really important, so that it really broadens the impact of this. It's not just a couple of guys in a room saying, hey, this is important, you need to save it. It's literally people from all over the planet that feel the same way. So step one is signing that petition. That's easy. It takes 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, at the most. It took me 30 seconds to sign that petition. It was so fast and easy.
And then step two is reaching out specifically to a group of people, county commissioners, both current and former, the mayor, though I did recently add a mark that he is supportive of preservation as a thank you, the state representative and the state senator, who haven't been in these meetings, but because, of course, they have a constituency there, the more they hear from people, the more they understand that this is something they need to pay attention to. And so I've got also some example verbiage there to be respectful, to call, here are my feelings. Again, if we call and start getting hot and cussing out people and everything, they'll hang up the phone and they won't hear another word any of us has to say. So I've got some example verbiage there. If people want to write an email, write a letter. Phone calls are always the most effective because you literally have 100% of their attention while you're on with them.
That's right.
But in the absence of being able to do that, there are multiple different ways to contact people locally. They're listed also.
You've got a list here. I'm going to show 6 major people to contact. It's a very concise list. I would encourage everybody. I think your number 2 should be the number 3. The number 2 should be share that petition with everybody you can think of. Sharing is caring. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is. And we've got, I know on the historic Route 66 Facebook group, over 120,000 members. If we could just get 10% of you guys out there to sign that petition and to make a few phone calls and a few emails, we're going to stop this from happening. So I'm going to share that phone number. There it is. Everyone, take a screenshot. If you're watching on your phone right now, hit the little screenshot shortcut on your phone. Save this frame. Call these people. Email them. Okay? Now, the second one, Bless Parker, he's the mayor of Miami, Oklahoma. He's a good guy. And he needs to hear from you as well. He needs encouraging words. If you're from Canada, call him. If you're from Japan, email him. Anybody from all around the world, if you're a Route 66 enthusiast like we are here today on this show, you need to be contacting these people. That's why I want you to screenshot it right now and share this screenshot with your friends and share it on all the different Facebook forums. This is so important. This is how this type of activism, this type of publicity is how we saved the Gasconade River Bridge. It was David versus Goliath, the little guy versus the government. Yet we prevailed. We won. We saved the bridge. And this can happen too with the Ribbon Road. This needs to happen. We cannot lose. I mean, think about it, folks. 2026 is just a year and a half away. We're just 18 months away from celebrating 100 years of Route 66. And this road is older than that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this is one of the oldest paved roads in the United States, and they are out there destroying it right now. I'm going to look at some other questions here. Everybody's been really quiet. When people are quiet, I know they're really engaged.
Yeah, I'm speechless.
And that's kind of fun.
I'm practically speechless. I'm glad I'm here listening to these details, and You're absolutely right. You know, a year and a half before the 100th anniversary, when people are going to come from all over the world to drive on our Route 66, and we get to be ambassadors for our country, and and they're out there tearing up this old road. Why? I don't. I'm speechless. I don't get it. I don't see the reason for it.
Well,
And I did. Yeah,
I think it's out of spite. I think this week it's out of spite. It'd be awfully coincidental that I just happened to do a show urging people to get involved just a couple days ago, and then within 36 hours they send out the grader blades. How long, Reese, has it been since grader blades have been on that road? It's been 3 or 4 years, hasn't it?
You know, I wish I could answer that question. Usually we only hear about it after the fact. This is the first time I've seen, pictures and footage of it right afterwards.
Yeah.
I do want to address a question Brady had, and I answered in the chat, but Brady had asked about are any state representatives and senators showing interest in preservation? And so the two that we have listed, we have Representative Bayshore. I don't know him, unfortunately. We haven't had the opportunity. But Senator Bergstrom he was involved with our preservation of the neon at the Highway Cafe, and he has been engaged on a few other efforts. So I have no reason to think he wouldn't be with this. I know his office has been contacted to be made aware of this. Representative Mark Lawson out of Sapulpa. That's the representative that helped craft and pass the legislation a few years back to create the $6.6 million grant that the state of Oklahoma currently has annually for Route 66 development and enhancement before the centennial. He also has been made aware of this. He's a big advocate for Route 66. So we do have some allies in the legislature. But again, kind of going back again and Lieutenant Governor Pinnell is aware of the situation. He's asked how he can help, and we basically kind of gave him the same list. These are the decision makers. Here's where we're at, and brought him up to speed on this. But again, it all goes back to the county. The county commissioners are the folks that can make this decision, and it doesn't matter who calls them. They're the ones that nobody is going to be able to legally stop them if they decide they want to tear this up, because it is completely within their jurisdiction.
That's the truth. That is the truth. It is within their jurisdiction, and that's why they're doing it right now. I believe it's them thumbing their nose at me, at you, at everybody else, saying, yeah, we hear you, but guess what? We're going to do this anyway. And we're still going to get paid $4 million to mess it all up. I truly think that's what they think. They're like, we're going to grind it all up anyway, so we don't care.
Just to show you who's boss.
Well,
yep. Just like Biff Lugnut says, it's a power trip.
And so we're pretty much like nearing the end of the Section 106 process, which is the Secretary of Interior standards. Anytime there's an impact to something on the National Register that has historic significance, that has any kind of federal involvement, which they've applied for federal money. So it goes through this entire long review process with a whole bunch of stakeholders or different people like the National Park Service and us and all that. The State Historic Preservation Office, which is one of the stakeholders, has already kind of made a ruling on this and said that, retain the curbs, and they weren't as concerned with the asphalt, unfortunately. And so that's another one of those things where that's kind of an arrow in our quiver we don't have. And so this kind of advocacy movement really is the best thing we can do to help get some attention on this. Well,
maybe that's what we'll talk about in the next show is how we reach out to SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, and say, we think you made a mistake. And we're making a big fuss about this, so maybe you should reconsider. They should at least be forced to justify their decision. How did they determine that this was not an adverse scenario? They have to justify that. I've been through SHPO Section 106 review, and particular when I wanted to put a roof on the Shamrock Court, I thought it would look really good if we used a metal roof. Guess what they said? They said, it never had a metal roof. You can't put a metal roof on it. Yeah, it might be better. Yeah, it might look good, and it'll last a lot longer, but you can't do it and have us pay for it. That was the ruling. And I agree with the ruling. I agree with it 100%. I wasn't mad at all. I just thought, well, let's see what they say. And now that we put the asphalt roof back on it, I'm pretty happy with the decision. I think it looks a lot better, and I think it definitely has preserved the character of the historic structure. So I think at minimum, SHPO owes the public some justification at how they arrived at their decision. So, Reese, do you have the contacts for SHPO? You think we could post that later on in the 66 Minutes Facebook group?
I'll do some digging and see what I've got.
Okay. Well, everybody, the fight's not over with. We gotta encourage Bless Parker and try to encourage State Senator Michael Bergstrom to get involved. Matt Pinnell, we know he's on fire for Route 66. He's a lieutenant governor, but as a lieutenant governor, you don't have that much power other than persuasion. So we can try to encourage Matt Pinnell to be persuasive to people. We can call Scott Hilton and tell him how disappointed we are. Same with Russell Earls and Guy Engineering, for that matter. They all deserve our sentiments, I think, at this point.
Is Guy Engineering of Oklahoma outfit?
I don't know.
I've not actually looked that up.
Based on the phone number, it looks like it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah, but this is my first time dealing with them, and I've met the Todd Leip, the guy that's listed there, once. Unfortunately, I don't have an ongoing relationship with them.
Yep. Well, Joe, is there anything else you'd like to add? We're coming to the conclusion of the show, but man, I think it's great that you showed up tonight, and I'd love to hear your final words on the matter.
Well, just as an outsider, I'm from Indiana, so I don't. And I sent in the emails for what it's worth, and I will help, because I think it's a great idea to save this road. There's got to be there's some kind of compromise that's better than scraping the life out of it with a grader. I hope we can succeed, and let's just put it this way: after this 66 minutes of conversation, I don't feel like we have a good path forward here. That's unfortunate. I'm grateful that we had the conversation, and I hope we can do something. I'm kind of speechless. It just doesn't make sense to me. That's the bottom line. This doesn't make sense to me. Just like it doesn't make sense to anybody else. What are they doing this for? What do they have to gain? I don't know.
I agree with you, Joe. It doesn't make sense. And usually when it doesn't make sense, there's something not being transparent or properly disclosed. Thanks for coming out, Joe. I appreciate it. Reese, any final words, sir?
I just appreciate you featuring the story and having me on to kind of help make the case. And I just encourage everybody, if you haven't, go out to oklahomaroute66.com/ribbon. It's got even more of the details there, as well as all the information we've been talking about. And it's got an easy link there to the change.org petition, so you can share it and keep track of our progress.
Thank you so much. Reese Martin, President, Oklahoma Route 66 Association. Journey Joe, I appreciate it. Guys, I'll see you later. Okay, so there you have it, folks. That's where we're at right now. It's up to you. That's what it really comes down to. It's up to you. It's up to how you share this, how involved you get. You need to express your passion. You need to express, no matter where you're at in the world, that this is important to you. All it takes is just a few moments of your time to get on there, sign the petition, send a few emails, make a few phone calls. It all makes a difference. And let me know when you do it. Let me know what kind of answers you get. Post them on the 66 Minutes Facebook group. We all want to hear the feedback that you're getting from the senators and the commissioners and the mayor. We want to hear that. Tell us what you're reporting back. I've had a few people let me know on private message, hey, I called Michael Bergstrom. They had no clue what was going on. They seemed to favor destruction of the road, and they think it's going to be fine. They've been convinced, and maybe that's why the next show should focus on why SHPO should start addressing this publicly. So again, sign that petition, share it, and get some contact out there. And if you're from a different country, that means just as much as anybody who's from Oklahoma or the United States. It probably means more. If they start getting people calling from Australia, New Zealand, Britain, South America, wherever you're at, wherever you hail from and you love Route 66, it's going to get them to notice. That's what I have to tell you there. We'll see you again Sunday. This was 66 Minutes. Thanks for sharing the show, and I'll see you Sunday. As always, everybody, go your own way. I'll see you down the road.